G'day and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is the second video in a series that I've started that covers a series of individual exercises that I've come to understand clinically as a physiotherapist that are really important for most people to do to either help resolve their aches and pains or just to improve your quality of life or your performance. The first video in this series was the couch stretch, which in my experience is easily one of the most important exercises that you can do for yourself. So please check that out if you're interested. And while the couch stretch went after tightness at the front of your thigh and the front of your hip, this exercise is a glute exercise that attempts to free up some hidden restrictions at the back of your hip. I'm going to show you the one that I give to my patients, the one that I feel is probably the most convenient, easiest, and most efficient use of your time to do. But having said that, much like we did with the couch stretch, I want to show you some variations that you can try to either make it easier for you to do or harder for you to do, depending on where you enter into this exercise to begin with. So let's get into it. So with any gluteal or piriformis type stretches, these can be really beneficial for anyone that's dealing with some lower back dysfunction, because your hip is the next most mobile structure underneath your back. So if that's tight, then your back has less room to move and is more likely to be loaded up differently as your body tries to compensate for a lack of range of motion below the spine. Not only that, freeing up these tight hip external rotators or the piriformis area can obviously really benefit anyone with any hip dysfunction. But much like the hip's relationship to the spine above it, tightness in your glutes can certainly affect the function of everything below your hip as well, whether that be knee dysfunction, ankle dysfunction, and foot dysfunction at the same time. So if you have any of those dysfunctions, this exercise might be a really nice way to try and clear out a hidden restriction that you maybe didn't realize or didn't appreciate maybe contributing to that dysfunction. But as always, if you don't have any of those issues, but you just want your hip to function better, you want your lower half to function better, or you care about performance and you want better performance from your lower half, then this exercise is a must do to see what it does for you and your body function. So the first version of this is really simple. All we want you to do is just sitting comfortably in a chair. We just want to get you to cross your leg. What this does, the hip flexion and the hip external rotation that you need to do to get into this position really biases that piriformis and those deeper hip external rotators. Now, obviously, some people find it hard to get their leg up into this position. If that's the case, if you can pop some pillows underneath you so you're not sitting down as deep into the chair, it will take out more of the hip flexion demand of this shape. But again, depending on how this feels, I'll show you how to regress this exercise in a second. But how the exercise looks regardless of what your entry point is to this is we want to make sure that you're up nice and tall, and we want you to lean forward from your hips. Now, the common mistake that a lot of people make with this is we judge how good we are at this exercise by how far our shoulders go forwards. But interestingly enough, if you keep yourself up nice and tall and just hinge through my hips, all I can do is get to here before I find a really obvious tightness in my glutes at the back. But if I keep that same position and then just bend through my back, I can obviously go a lot lower than I could before, but for no additional gain. So it's not about how far you go with your shoulders. It's about being up nice and tall, trying to hinge through your hips as far as you can to find some of that tightness. From here, you can have your hands on your shins just to help take the tension out of your back, especially if you have some lower back dysfunction. From here, you can gently turn your trunk towards your knee or turn your trunk towards your foot to find which version of this gives you the best access to your tightness. And as we did in the previous video with the couch stretch, it's not enough to just hold this stretch for 30 seconds and hope that it does something. That's old school thinking. It doesn't work as well as we thought it did and hoped it did. What you need to do instead is wherever you find that tightness, we need to tense up that tightness, get that musculature to activate for 5 to 10 seconds. This creates a reflex in your brain that when you stop tensing it while maintaining the same position, that tissue will instantly give and relax more than it would before. And what that means is that if it has happened, you should then feel you can go a little bit further into that stretch than you could before finding that same tightness. And then we just keep repeating that process until you either stop making change or you get sick of it after about 30, 60 seconds to 2 minutes based on your tolerance to the exercise. And then what you should find immediately is you should immediately feel that it's a bit lighter and a little bit looser through that part of your hip than what it was before. And then depending on how this particular version felt for you, then we can regress the exercise or progress the exercise to find the level that you feel is appropriate. So if you found that something about the sitting version didn't quite gel with you, then what we can do is we can regress this to doing it lying on your back. And how this looks is it's the same principles as the exercise in sitting. So you want to have your opposite leg bent up and then cross the leg that you're trying to stretch over the top. We want to bring this up as far as you feel comfortable until you find some tightness. And then from here, you can grab a towel or just reach through to your opposite leg and you can just gently pull that towards you as far as you feel comfortable. Again, we're looking for that tightness in the heart of your glute, and you can just gently shift your hips from side to side to find where the best version of that is. You might find as you move your opposite leg away towards where your foot is pointing, you might start to generate more tightness in here than if you went towards the camera. But ultimately, you're finding what feels meaningful to you. You're staying here, you're then trying to tense up that muscle. You might need to push your leg back into your opposite leg to make that muscle work. I want you to hold this for 5 to 10 seconds again. Once you've done that and you relax, it'll give, and you might find you can bring it a little bit further into the stretch than what you could before. And then you can keep repeating this process again until you either get sick of it or you've stopped making change. And if you're looking for a harder version of this stretch, then try this next one. So a more advanced version of this glute stretch, or pigeon stretch if you want to call it that, involves you doing the same thing on a bench or a chair. And how that essentially looks is if you can have your foot up on something and then let your foot drop off to the side, what we're looking to try and do is to try and get your knee to drop down as far as you feel comfortable. But the benefit of doing it here is that if you can take your hips back and hinge forward from your hips until you can get your hand onto the surface that you're on, we can really start to leverage the tension from the bed to add more force through your hip. Again, we want to go hunting for which version of this feels the best for you. And for me, I need to drop my back leg a little bit just to bring myself into more hip flexion before I twist to the side. Again, once you've found it, give it a squeeze, then relax, drop down, go further, emphasize the stretch further. Keep repeating that process again until it starts to mobilize in ways that the other two versions maybe don't give you. And then eventually what you might find is you become so adept at doing this that either on the ground or on a bed or another surface, you can get into a position where you can have your foot on the ground, drop that leg down as deep as you feel comfortable, and repeat the same process. We can go hunting for where you feel the best version of that tightness is. Give it a good squeeze, let it relax, drop down deeper. Keep repeating that process, trying to emphasize the ability for that hip to flex and to externally rotate to target those glutes at the back/side of your hip. And as we've been saying, it's really important that you have a version of a glute stretch that you feel is comfortable and effective and efficient for you. As I mentioned at the start of the video, glute tightness can play a huge role in so much lower limb and lower back dysfunction that if you're not at least looking for it and trying to mobilize that dysfunction, you could be missing one integral piece to the puzzle that's asking your specific tissue to be dysfunctional. Or if you're feeling fantastic and you just want to perform and move better, it makes sense to go after one of the most commonly tight parts of the body, those tight glutes. So as always, I genuinely hope that that was helpful. Please let me know in the comments down below which version of that stretch is your entry point, which one feels comfortable for you to do. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, let me know. Consider subscribing to the channel if you like this type of content and you want to catch up with these exercises as I put them out. But ultimately, I really do hope that helped, and I'll see you next time. Bye.